let me start off by saying this. I'm not crazy. No matter how many times Sarah's mom tells me I can't walk Coco within 50 feet of their property, or how many unfilled prescriptions end up in the trash bin outside of Dr. Cully's office every Thursday afternoon. It's so easy to hear words like restraining order and antipsychotics and write me off as another Joker-worshipping person who blurs the line between violence-loving Tarantino fanatic and anime body pillow hoarding incel who lacks the brain capacity to see people as individuals. But this has nothing to do with this, especially not Sarah. Not even the whirling tornado of a person that is Sarah Joneston could have caused me to end up here. My leg muscles are screaming to be unfolded just once. Just one little stretch to ease the soreness, and then back to knees to chest crouch I've been assuming since hours before the sun went down. No one ever asks my side of the story. And it's not because they don't believe that a person like me could have an ounce of good in them. It's because the truth is too complicated, and it might disrupt their neat little boxes that file away people as stereotypes. It's dark now, and I don't know if the hay bales I'm squished between are bug-ridden, or if the farm animals will mistake me for their evening meal. Worst of all, I don't know if that blue and red flashing in the distance is coming to save me from this nightmare or finish the horrors of what everyone else has started. Let me go back to this morning, to when I was strapping Coco into her harness for our 8 o'clock walk around the neighborhood. Sarah's mom thinks I do it on purpose. Like walk by their stupid little picket fence with the light blue flowers, and the window upstairs that I'd more than once been sitting on the other side of, gazing out at lonely pet walkers like me. But truthfully, I can't get within 10 yards of her to tell her that the dog park is just west of the cul-de-sac, and I couldn't possibly put Coco in the line of fire of snarling Rottweilers trying to devour her tiny feline flesh. And it's not my fault. It's not my fault either. That one time I let Coco explore outside by herself, she returned with a bloody scratch on her stomach. And after an expensive trip to the vet and a week-long dose of medicine that she practically spit in my face each time I tried to administer, I couldn't possibly be expected to let her wander alone in the dangers of the outdoors ever again. I don't even notice the double takes anymore. So I'm a weird, lanky girl walking a cat on a leash. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares, right? At least I don't own a body pillow. Anyways, the weirdness started with Sarah's mom. She's always standing at the kitchen window, arms folded and eyes ready to pierce through my skin. And normally we'd have our little staring contest, and every single time I'd lose, letting Coco's scamper lead me to the next plant or rock or piece of trash that grabbed her interest. But this time, Sarah's mom was outside 5 or 10 feet away from my face, closer than she'd been in months. I could see the wrinkles on her forehead and the bags beneath her eyes. And she said, "This is the last time," she told me. "It's over for you." I might have imagined it, but I could swear there was a hint of smile peeking at the corners of her coarse, peeling lips. The last time for what?" I muttered, scooping a squirming Coco into my arms. She meowed, which is begging me to let her chase a passing squirrel. And Sarah's mom goes, "You aren't convincing anyone with that thing," and she gestured at Coco. And I said, "What?" I hate it when my stutter comes out. "It's just a cat." Sarah's mom said, "Better hide it somewhere safe then." And this time her lips definitely curved into a smile, an evil, praying grin, and I swear I saw a glint in her pocket, something metal and shiny. A knife? A needle? Something to hurt my precious Coco? I tumbled down the sidewalk, squeezing Coco tight in my arms. I didn't stop running until we cleared the block. After heaving breaths of fresh air, my paranoia began to calm. I reasoned that Sarah's mom has always been crazy. And sure, it's been ages since she's come close enough to touch me with a 10-foot pole, but that doesn't mean she has anything sinister planned. It's like I said, Sarah's mom is crazy. She's just crazy. So I continued on with my day. At the coffee shop, I ordered a vanilla latte. I was at the cream and sugar table ready to pack it with extra sugar, as my sweet tooth always begs of me, and a girl next to me fumbled around with the sugar packets. Normally I wouldn't notice something so simple, but it was like she couldn't stop touching them. Her fingers dug into the container, emerging with handfuls of packets and then releasing them again, just mixing them. I glanced at her face, and she wore a grin that would seem playful if not for her narrowed eyes. She threw her head back and cackled, and then shifted her evil eyes to me. As I struggled to find words, she whisked herself away into the abyss of tables and chairs. I reached for a sugar packet, nearly ready to rip it open and empty it into my latte. That's when I caught it, a glint of green, squishy and glowing like a squashed-up firefly that's light had yet to die with it. Inside the packet, moving, gurgling, fighting its way out. I left without my vanilla latte. I couldn't do it. No, not today. When I got home, I locked my front door and ran to the bathroom. I looked at my reflection, sweaty hair strands stuck to my forehead. I'm not crazy. That girl tried to poison me. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. When my breathing had slowed and I had wiped the sweat from my forehead, I heard a knock at the door. I strolled over expecting a package or a neighbor or something, but because of the day I had, I snuck a look through the peephole first. I'm so glad I did. Outside stood a man in a suit, seemingly normal and kind and professional. I was almost fooled. He wore a backpack that swallowed him like the shell of a turtle. His toothy smile couldn't distract me from the wires protruding from his sides. The black boxes with little blinking lights. I froze, afraid that a single move could set off the bomb. Had he rigged it in advance? Was I about to step on the triggering button, perhaps disguised as my doormat? Or accidentally flick on a light that turned out to be the triggering switch? Oh, God, a few more knocks. I stood still until it was quiet. And just when I thought it might be safe to move again, a single piece of lined paper slid through the crack of my door. It said in scribbly black writing, "Go to Sarah's grave." To be honest, I kind of forgot she was dead. Sure, she's dead to me, and I'm dead to her. I just forgot she was dead to the rest of the world, too. So I go to the cemetery. Her grave is just a grave. A stone etched with her name, a plot of dirt where her body must rest somewhere deep down under. There's nothing for me to find. Why did they send me here? That's when I realized that Coco was missing. She was just here, cradled in my arms, and suddenly her little brown fuzzy body was nowhere. And in my arms was just my jacket, all folded and crumpled. I must have spaced out so hard that I thought I was holding Coco. I must have absent-mindedly set her down and thought I was still gripping her because of the way this jacket feels in my arms, so soft and warm. A man was coming towards me suddenly. He was dressed in a black cape. He was so slim and tall that he could turn to the side and shrivel into the fog like the bare branches on the trees. And I called out, "Have you seen my cat?" And he didn't answer. He just kept coming towards me. And when he got close enough for me to see the base of his cape, my heart stopped. Not because his feet were picking up their pace and running faster and faster at me. No, he didn't have feet. His body drifted along a layer of fog, black fabric twisting and twirling where his body cut off into nothingness. I think I screamed, but I can't be sure. I bolted out of the cemetery, running aimlessly across someone's farmland. I'm not familiar with the countryside, and I can't really remember where I parked my car, but I yanked open the gate to the little red barn, tripping over myself as I stumbled inside. I folded myself between the stacks of hay. I looked down to the jacket still cradled in my arms. Looking again, I don't think it's my jacket. I can't remember where I got it, but it's clearly too small for me, and the style seems more fit for someone else. "Hey!" someone boomed, pounding fists against the barn doors. "Who's in there?" I kept still, trying to steady my breathing. The doors opened, and I cursed myself for not bothering to figure out how to lock them. I couldn't see the guy's face, but the heavy stomps of his boots told me enough. "Show yourself," he bellowed. "I ain't afraid to shoot ya." There's not enough light in here to see whether the man had a gun, but I took his word for it. He kicked the hay, and I hugged the jacket to my chest until he left, muttering something about pesky animals. So am I being paranoid? Or is everyone trying to kill me? I guess it's only a matter of time before I find out. The sirens are only getting louder, and I'm too cold and tired to crouch between bales of hay any longer. Can't look at those lights anymore. In the last few years, I managed to get my stuff together. I've slimmed down a lot of weight. Changed the way I dress. I've been wearing some makeup. You know, the usual post-breakup stuff. I needed to prove to myself I was worth more than my relationship. You should have seen me before. It's absolutely disgusting. My hairs were always dirty and frizzy. My face was always greasy. I wore smaller clothes to look slimmer. And when I look at the very few old photos, I hardly recognize myself. My self-esteem is significantly higher now. The self-improvement process wasn't either short or easy, not gonna lie. I went from the bullied girl to the decently attractive girl. I think I can say that beauty is kind of measurable. Since I went from 0 to 60, I was able to experience all the phases. Can't describe how happy and proud I was when the first pretty boy asked me out. It was a statement of how far I've come. But let's get back on track. My beauty measurement system, it's easier than you might think. It's all about the number and intensity of the gazes you get. Before the changes, boys considered me only after proving myself smart and funny and after a long friendship. Always the second choice. Maybe not even second. Male gaze, catcalling, meaningless words. But slowly, as I became slimmer and closer to the beauty standards, things changed. Some guys gazed at me on the streets, and sometimes one approached me. Then they became a fair number of gazes and more frequent approaches. Then they became a lot of gazes and a lot of approaches. And girls? Man, do they hate me. All great till now, but I'm not here to brag. You know that feeling when someone stares at you? Isn't it amazing how humans can instantly detect if someone is directly staring at them? If you've ever been stared at, you'll know the feeling of looking into a complete stranger's eyes. At first, you're unsure. Are they staring at me? And then you're insecure. Is there something in my hair? And then you become confused. Why are they looking at me? And then you become a little amused. Do they like me? And then you become upset. What are you looking at? And then fear kicks in. Is this a threat? And then the paranoia. What did I do? Am I in trouble? Are they gonna hurt me? Without considering the self-awareness that strikes in whenever someone stares at you. Is my hair in place? Is there something on my face? How am I sitting? No, don't laugh that hard. It's not that feminine. Close my legs. What are you, a sailor? Why have you said that? Stupid. Well done. Now you look stupid. Oh no, my back is all twisted. The shirt folds are making me look fat. Stupid shirt. If I assume this position, my chest will show up more. Like I have any. Can you please stop swearing so much? Relax. You look like a wooden board. My voice. I sound like a teenage boy. Do I sound like a boy? I should ask Trish. You know, the usual, I think. As I got more attractive, those situations became more frequent. You know, it can be fun to be in that situation once in a while. But sometimes you just want to relax and have a chill night. Because when everyone is looking at you, every eye feels like a spotlight. And when you are under the spotlights, what can you do? Keep dancing and dancing until the show is over. Exhausting. To avoid this kind of situation, I started to change bars. Many bars. I loved to hang out with a lot of people, but I don't enjoy it anymore. I began to avoid crowded places. It all just got so exhausting. Not to mention the unwanted attention. Anyone can be harassed occasionally, but it was getting out of hand. A bit too many drunks, a bit too many talky charmers, a bit too protective old men. They treat you better if you're attractive, for sure, but they don't really like you. Exhausting. But in the end, not even avoiding crowded places was enough. Everywhere I went, people stared at me with those blinding eyes. I hate those eyes. So I began to leave the house less frequently. You know that moment of awe you experience when you see something beautiful? Your jaw drops slightly, your eyes widen, and words get stuck in your throat. It's amazing to both give and receive that look. It's so genuine. Isn't it? No, it sucks. Guys, I haven't talked to anyone in weeks. People just stare at me with those eyes that look changed with time. It wasn't awe anymore, it was hunger. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a walking piece of meat. In the silence, nobody spoke. In the silence, nobody spoke to me anymore. Nobody spoke at all when I was around. They just stared at me with those blinding eyes and that ravenous look. Silence. Everyone just stopped whatever they were doing to stare at me. They just stare. Like the only thing preventing them from eating me was the law. And the night is even worse. I walk through the streets and I can see those luminous eyes staring at me in the dark. And the silence. At night you can almost hear them breathe. Those eyes are even more blinding at night, and I hate them. I hate those eyes. I can see them through the windows following me in the dark, behind the curtains. In silence. Yesterday it all peaked. I needed to pick up some groceries, so I left the house. At the grocery store, everyone went instantly silent as soon as I got in. They all stared at me. They followed my every step. Someone even physically moved around to keep watching me. I took what I needed and reached for the cash out as fast as I could. The silence. At the desk, the cashier also stared at me in silence. "So, how much?" I asked. Silence. So I tried to tip the products myself. I wanted to do it as fast as I could, but I had to get too close to the cashier. The third item was too heavy to handle with one hand, and it slipped out of my hand right behind the counter. The cashier just looked at me. "I'm sorry, could you please pick it up for me?" Silence. I really needed that item, so I walked slowly to go behind the counter. He followed me with his eyes, until he had to tilt his head. And then not even his head was enough, so he turned the chair. "I'm gonna pick it up if you don't mind," I said. Nothing. Just the look. I took a deep breath and slowly crawled under his chair. The closer I got, the heavier he breathed. I could feel his burning eyes on my neck. I picked the item as fast as I could and crawled back. Stood up and took another breath, looked at the counter. Every single person in the store was standing behind it, staring at me. I know I shouldn't have, but I was too scared. So I took my bag and ran away without paying. I ran faster and faster until I was home. Some hours have passed since then. I was starting to calm down. Until dinner. As the sun went down, the house got darker. And then I noticed a fainted light out the window. I got closer to see what it was. The cashier. The cashier was there staring at me out of my window. I wasn't hungry anymore, but I had to eat something, so I made dinner. And when it was ready, I went to eat it in the living room. And there I saw, out of the windows, the blinding eyes have multiplied. So many eyes. They were all staring at me with those eyes. I hate those eyes! I can't see anything! They stare at me! They're staring at me! What have I done? Is my hair messed up? Something on my face? Am I sitting wrong? Am I not feminine enough? Guys, what's wrong with me? Please, just tell me what's wrong with me. Hi guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Big shout out to my patrons, Leaf Ninja, Roy Larimer, Mr. Creepypasta, Nicole Kister, Neon Scoundrel, William Dolphin, and So Much Heresy. If you want to become a patron, buy merch, or join my Discord server, be sure to check out the links in the description. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. The title doesn't lie. My dad is a chair. To be specific, he's a fully upholstered bright orange angel accent living room chair. The kind with wooden legs you'd find in any three-piece suit from the 70s. He's pretty comfortable, truth be told. A little lumpy in places, but his padding is soft. Warm, too. He's always warm. There's also the telltale ba-thump, ba-thump, ba-thump coming from his back cushion. A steady rhythm at my lumbar to remind me I'm sitting in no ordinary chair. He wasn't always a chair. Until last year, he was Kevin the accountant. He was 51, slightly overweight, and generally seemed to enjoy life as a human. He was married to Mom. He still is, but, well, as you can imagine, it's a little complicated right now. It was funny at first. He came home from work one day and just sat in a corner of the living room. When we'd ask him why he was sitting on the floor and not the $4,000 cream leather couch, he'd just smile and say, "It feels right here." It stopped being funny the morning he didn't go to work. Turns out he hadn't slept the night before. He'd been watching a movie with Mom, but hadn't gone with her to bed. She left him sitting in his spot, unsuspicious of the "I'm not tired, I'll be up a little later" lie. She and I both begged him to get up, but he refused to move. Phoned in sick at work, the whole deal. Just spent the day sitting on the floor in his corner. We kept asking him what was wrong, why he couldn't get up except to use the bathroom, and he just kept saying, No, this feels right." Mom phoned the doctor around the third day of this. He'd stopped eating or drinking, you see. Stopped getting up to use the bathroom, too. Surprisingly, though, there weren't as many, accidents as you'd think. Once he'd allowed the last of the food and drink to leave him, it seemed to stop coming. We also didn't hear his belly growl despite going a day and a half without food. The doctor couldn't make sense of it. Their first guess was that it was psychosomatic, but that wouldn't explain the absence of digestive activity exposed by the stethoscope. They said they'd be back to take some blood samples in a few days after they spoke to some colleagues. Unfortunately, as I said, this was about last year, 2020. We never heard back from the doctor thanks to the virus that shall not be named. I guess a guy with gut troubles who refuses to move is low on the priorities list during a global pandemic. Somehow, Mom managed to wrangle long-term sick leave with Dad's company. Decades of loyal employeeism combined with Mom's attendance of every company barbecue and softball game helped Mr. Bannerfrog buy the unexplained stomach concern requiring hospitalization excuse. I'll never forget that phone call. At the time, Dad losing his job was the worst-case scenario for both of us. He'd always been the breadwinner. Neither of us could support ourselves without him. We'd lose the house in under a year. Dad didn't seem too perturbed by Mom's frantic pacing or the lies she wormed through the phone to Mr. Bannerfrag. He just stared at the wall serenely, hovering his butt half a foot from the carpet, balancing with his legs bent and his hands flat on the ground behind him. That night I fell asleep listening to Mom yelling at Dad. He never yelled back. We started noticing the physical changes a few days later. That's when we realized this wasn't psychosomatic. Unfortunately, our best insurance deal on the market doctor wasn't picking up the phone. We'd get passive-aggressive emails informing us they were waiting to hear back from colleagues, but that was it. This was not good. Especially not when the joints in Dad's arms and legs had fused. The not goodness of the doctor's silence increased 1,000-fold when we sent photos of Dad's hands and feet flaking off like discarded spider husks the following week. Did the response change? No. We got a very snippy email about shortages on ICU wards and the critical international situation. Mom's shouting match with the chief of medicine, the one that she demanded her way up the phone chain to speak to, didn't change things. We were on our own. Mom spent all her time in the living room with Dad. I'd help her wash him, try and make him eat, talk to him when she'd tire out and fall asleep on the rug. Every day of this routine brought with it new changes in Dad's body. It started with his limbs, as you could probably guess. When his hands and feet fell off, there was no blood. They flaked apart, crusty and dry and brittle throughout. Even the bones of his toes and fingers had the density and consistency of dead skin. The wrists and ankles they left behind were smooth and hard. It was difficult to tell whether we were looking at flesh or exposed bone. The dark, shining surface seemed to blend into his normal arm at the base of the stumps. This discoloration would rise further up his limbs daily, and before long I woke to see Dad's head and torso fused to the wooden chair legs supporting my weight while I write this. Well, I use the term Dad's head and torso in the loosest possible sense. By the time his limbs were completely replaced, the rest of him had undergone a slow, harrowing transformation of its own. His shoulders and the arms attached to them descended lower and lower. They found their final resting place at Dad's pelvis, sat squarely behind his rigid legs. The chest area they'd left behind had its own problems. Day by day, Dad's neck retracted further inwards. It didn't stop when his jaw met collarbone either. It pulled Dad's head deep into his ribcage. His face flattened as the skull supporting it sank, forcing his eyes to point in opposite directions. Eventually, they slid down to where his nipples once lay, resting glassy and vacant on his pecs. The change wasn't quick enough to break his jaw, though. Instead, it bent outward, its hinges spreading wide across Dad's broad chest. Each morning, I'd find Mom sobbing over a fresh, unnecessary piece of himself he'd discarded. Hair, ears, nose, all of them flaked off and crumpled to dust in her hands. He lost the ability to speak as his head withdrew. Unsurprising, though, right? He made his intentions clear before he went. The last words he ever said to me: "Don't cry. I am a chair. Always was chair. Happy as chair." That was the worst part, I think. Knowing that whatever was happening to Dad, he wasn't resisting it. That when he'd got that initial urge to sit in the corner and not get up, he didn't fight it. That he was happy this way. The implication being that when he was human, when he was a father and a husband and accountant, he wasn't. Sadly, I still don't know why or how Dad became a chair. I didn't post any photos, you see. Mom wouldn't let me. I didn't want the embarrassment. Wanted to keep Dad's dignity intact. Thing is, I agreed with her and kinda still do. I'm glad I didn't go to the socials with pics of Dad at various stages of his journey. The temptation was there to see if anyone could help. Nobody could have, though. Could they? Dad would have just become another internet circus freak. I've done enough research and digging over the months to know that whatever happened to Dad, he's the only one. Well, almost only. Mom's own changes started around the time Dad's skin was rethreading into orange fabric, and his eyes had hardened into plastic buttons. Her change was a little different. It started in her torso, stretching her day by day while she remained in crab pose. I must say, she makes a great couch. Her transformation may have been a little more distressing, but the end result is better. Sorry, Dad, it is what it is. I think the worst part with Mom was the despondency. Dad was so severe as he changed. Mom, though? Mom would not stop weeping. Quiet sobs, tears that fell for a few days even after her own eyes had become flat plastic. She wasn't crying because of the change, though, I think. I think it was because she wouldn't get to see how beautiful I'll look when I go through my own metamorphosis. Thing is, I get it now. Dad was right. He was chair. Mom was couch. I am coffee table. I always was. I was scared at first when I realized. The truth hit me like a piano drop from the Empire State Building. I was scrubbing the last of Mom's remaining human skin when it struck through every bone in my wrong body. Just as it must have done both Mom and Dad. I spent that whole night sitting on Dad, tears falling down my cheeks, staring at my spot. I didn't want it to be true. I screamed for it not to be, more than once. I couldn't deny the facts I knew deep down in my bones, though. That spot, the place on the rug in front of chair Dad and couch Mom, is for me. It's mine. Where I belong. Unlike blissfully accepting Dad and weeping, resigning Mom, I fought it for a few days. I'm not like them. I'm only 17. I have had dreams, ambitions, goals. I wanted to go to college, settle down, marry some lucky guy, be a mom. I wasn't ready to give up my human form. I spent my nights begging for more time. Nothing answered. The urges didn't abate. My awareness of reality, now the illusions had been swept away, was too great. When I have slept this last week or so, my dreams have always been the same. I dreamt of true reality, of how I know things should be. I dream of me in my place, my body elongated and wooded and flat as is right, as is correct, as is natural. I have long, blissful slumbers filled with the feeling of hot ceramic mugs on my tabletop and thick carpet beneath my forelegs. I can't fight it anymore. I'm posting this here, but also printing it out to leave as a note for the removal guys. I want them to be careful with us when the bank repossesses the house and we end up in storage. Please keep us together if you can. We're a set. Dad's sick leave ended months ago. As you can imagine, the foreclosure notices had been piling up. I stopped caring about the pile of mail under the door around the time that Mom's ribcage split and flattened into her wide pinstripe velvet upholstered back. I haven't been hungry in days, or thirsty. I'm not even sure if I'm breathing now that I think about it. I'm still scared, but I've come to accept that this is the way things have to be. I don't know why. They just do. Maybe it's a curse. Maybe this house is buried on some ancient ritual site. Maybe it's just some freaky anomaly of physics. Who knows? Whatever the reason, I have to suck it up and accept the way things are. This body, this walking, wobbling mass of skin and bone and ghibli bits that I love so much, isn't right. It isn't mine. I'm not meant for it anymore. Once I post this and print the copy for the removal guys, I'm going to get in my spot. And then it's just a case of closing my eyes and waiting. I can already feel my limbs pulling inward. My thighs and upper arms sliding to where they'll meet at my navel in a few days. There's a tugging on the back of my knees where they'll bend in on themselves. and all 20 of my fingers and toes grow number with each hour that passes. Do I have regrets? Thousands. There's so much I'll never get to do, to see, to go, to be. I can't hide from the truth, though. Not anymore. I am coffee table. They're everywhere. Crawling on every possible surface. All the time. Invisible to the naked eye. Millions, no, billions of them. Viruses, bacteria, microorganisms, vile, deadly parasites ready to infect me, invade my body, multiply and spread, and then kill me. The furnace repairman is finishing up, putting away his tools. I thank him for his time, keeping a cautious distance, which he thinks nothing of. We are in the middle of an epidemic, after all. And he doesn't find the blue mask covering the bottom half of my face strange. He's wearing one himself. I smile at him, managing to sound grateful and courteous, but inside I'm screaming hysterically at the top of my lungs. Screaming for this intruder, this unclean intruder, to get out. To leave my sterile sanctuary and take his germs and viruses with him. He leaves my copy of the service invoice on the kitchen table, wishes me a good day. I will as soon as you leave, you disgusting diseased jerk, and finally leaves. The moment the door closes, all tension leaves my body. I collapse into a chair, trying to get my racing heart under control. Slowly, I return to a state of calm. Why did the furnace have to break now, in the middle of a sub-zero cold snap? I ponder bitterly. If it had waited just a few more days when temperatures were supposed to rise into the mid-30s, I could have postponed the inevitable for weeks, getting by with a space heater to keep warm. I feel violated having a stranger in my home, defiling the sanctity of my clean, pure environment, touching my things, spreading his germs. Germs. I shudder, feeling completely drained by my ordeal. But there's no time to rest. There are things to do. My home, my sanctuary, my safe haven away from a contaminated, infectious world is no longer sterile. I must clean it, and quickly, before the germs can spread, multiply, invade. I get up to go to the kitchen, opening the closet that contains my arsenal. Weapons that enable me to fight back against the forces of darkness that are always encroaching upon my domain, keeping me safe from an unclean, unsafe world. On the top shelf, dozens of cans of disinfectant spray, neatly arranged in rows like ranks of soldiers awaiting inspection by a general. The second shelf down, assorted bottles of bleach and other cleaning products. The third shelf down, bottles of hand sanitizer, hundreds of them, also neatly arranged. Inwardly, I'm grateful I stocked up well before the current health crisis made this valuable item such a prized commodity that was hard to obtain. The fourth shelf down, rolls of paper towels and disinfectant wipes. I never use reusable sponges or rags to do my cleaning. Those are breeding grounds for disease. The fifth and bottom shelf, boxes of latex gloves and face masks. Below the bottom shelf is my mop, a supply of disposable mop heads. I replace them after each individual cleaning. And hanging from a hook on the inside of the closet door is my clear plastic raincoat I wear as a smock whenever I do my daily cleaning ritual. I prepare for battle, donning my smock, a pair of gloves, and grabbing some wipes and disinfectant spray. I pause to consider my strategy. I think about that repairman, where he had been, and what he had touched or might have touched inside my home. He had closed the door behind him when he left. The knob. That was it. I would start at the end and systematically work my way backwards. I go to my front door, spray the inner knob, and wipe it thoroughly, gleefully envisioning the hordes of microscopic germs writhing in agony as they died. Finished, I hesitate. I have to clean the outer doorknob now, but that means opening the door to the outside world beyond, the polluted, germ-infested world outside. I feel the onset of another panic attack. Just leave it alone. My mind speaks in an urgent whisper. Don't open the door. You never go outside anyway. But if I don't clean the outside knob, the germs on it might find a way inside and might crawl through the keyhole and gain entry into my house. Germs are sneaky, insidious little parasites. I brace myself, holding my breath. 3 seconds. It will only take 3 seconds, I tell myself. Summoning the courage, I grip the knob, turn it, and thrust open my door. I go to work, frantically scrubbing the outer knob, the moisture from the wipe freezing to ice on the cold metal almost instantly. I scrub with my breath held until my lungs are throbbing for oxygen, and then step back, slam the door, and fall back against it, gasping in lungfuls of diseased air. All right, that's done. Next, I think. The basement door. He had turned the knob when he opened it to go down and look at the furnace. I enter my kitchen and sanitize the basement doorknob. And then I pause. Had he also touched the inner basement doorknob? No, he had left the basement door open while he'd been working. No need to clean it. It's safe. No, clean it anyway. Don't take chances. Gotta be sure. I opened the basement door and wiped down the inner doorknob. Next, the furnace itself, of course. He'd been working on it, touching it with his filthy germ-covered hands. This causes a sudden wave of panic to overwhelm me. He had been working on the furnace, had dismantled it, and had his filthy, unsanitary hands on its inner components. His germs could have gotten inside my furnace, could be circulating right this very moment on the heater air, through my heating ducts, exiting through the vents in my house. No! I struggle to control my inner turmoil. The filter would have caught the germs. I always bought the most expensive top-of-the-line filter to keep my air system as clean and pure as possible. Reassured, I go about sanitizing the front and side of the furnace. When I am finished, all that remains to be sterilized is the floor. He had walked through my house, tracking his disgusting germ-ridden boots across my floor. I go back upstairs and fill the mop bucket with hot water and Pine Sol. It kills 99.9% of germs, but what about the remaining 0.1%? And carefully and methodically mop my floor from the living room, through the kitchen, down the basement stairs, and to the furnace, sanitizing the path of infection. Making it all clean, all pure, all safe. Done. I am done. Exhausted, but relieved, I emptied the dirty mop water down the toilet. I never dump it down the kitchen sink. The kitchen sink's where I wash my dishes, which I ate my meals off of. Germs. I sanitize the bucket itself, throw away the used mop head, return my cleaning supplies to their respective places, a place for everything, and everything in its place. Mother always used to tell me that, and close the closet door, feeling relaxed for the first time since that horrible man entered my home. I take off my face mask and latex gloves and throw them into the trash. I'm on my way into the living room to watch TV when my glance falls upon the kitchen counter. I came up short, a scream rising in my throat. The invoice. The service invoice that stupid repairman left on my kitchen counter. I had been so preoccupied with cleaning, sterilizing my home sanctuary, I had forgotten about it, had overlooked it. It had been sitting on my clean counter where I prepare my meals, all the while the invoice he held in his dirty, diseased hands, teeming with germs, teeming with infection. For a moment, I can't think coherently enough to act. My mind is clamoring in a frenzied horror. It sounds like 1,000 voices are screaming all at once, overlapping, "You dirty girl, germs!" And I can only stand there, frozen in panic. And then, without thinking, I dart forward and grab the infected sheet of paper off the counter. No! I had forgotten! I had already removed my gloves. My hands are unclean! You've been dirty! You've been dirty! You're dirty, 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 dirty! I rush into the living room and hastily deposit the invoice in the fireplace. And then I race into the kitchen and turn on the faucet, turning it over the hot water. When the water's as hot as it can get, seconds that pass like hours, my mind is still screaming, my heart racing, unclean, unclean, unclean! I slather my hands up to my wrists in antibacterial soap, and then plunge them under the scalding hot spray, teeth clenching against an agonized scream, knowing the hot water is good. Hot water will cleanse, will purify, will kill the germs. You've been doing it again, haven't you? Haven't you, you dirty girl? And make me pure again. After 30 seconds, I turn off the hot water. My hands are an angry red from the hot water, but they're free of germs. I grab some disinfectant wipes and carefully clean the faucet and the counter where the filthy service invoice was lying, and then I go back into the living room, take the box of matches off the mantel above the fireplace, light one, and leaning down, careful not to touch it with my bare skin, I light the invoice, watching it intently as it burns until nothing remains but ashes. I fall back into my armchair, drained but content. It's over. The nightmare is truly over. Everything in my house is clean. The balance has been restored. I'm safe now. I sit upright, feeling a jolt course through my body. I replay the events of this afternoon over in my head. Hello, I'm Nate. I'm here to look at your furnace. Yes, it's in the basement. I'll show you the way. I lunged to my feet, my body quivering, a watery cold sensation in my stomach. Idiot! My mind berates me in the voice of my mother. What were you thinking? I had been so foolish. I had led him to the basement, my back turned instead of pointing the way and following behind so I could keep an eye on him. How could I be so careless? A sudden malevolent vision flashes before my eyes. The evil, diseased furnace repairman, his friendly smile turning into a malicious grin the second my trusting back is turned, running his germy, contaminated hands over the furniture in the living room as he follows me, gleefully corrupting the clean counters in the kitchen as he passes by, violating my sterile appliances, corrupting everything in his wake, raping, destroying, infecting, infesting. I look around, anxious and leery, no longer safe in my home. I can feel the eyes of a billion invisible enemies watching me intently. I tread cautiously, lightly across my floor as if I'm moving across a minefield. My eyes dart suspiciously around the previously trusted and known dimensions of my house, as if looking for booby traps. I try to think rationally. 20 seconds at most. It had taken me no more than 20 seconds to lead him through my living room and kitchen to the basement floor. He couldn't have done much harm in such a brief amount of time. Couldn't have touched much. But I had no way of knowing exactly what he may have touched, or what number. Anything could be my enemy. Germs, germs, germs! Spreading and multiplying, invading, destroying! You've been a dirty girl touching that nasty thing again! I'll have to clean and sanitize everything in the living room and kitchen. It's the only way to be sure. To be safe, clean! I return to my arsenal closet, getting out my wipes and disinfecting spray. It'll take hours, the rest of the day, maybe all night, but it needs to be done. Stupid, 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 stupid! How could you be so foolish? I start in the living room, spraying and wiping down the furniture, the TV, the bookcase, the floor. Grateful I don't have any carpets. Breeding ground for germs. Or else I would have to vacuum and steam clean. Hours pass. Clean, clean, clean. Make it pure, make it sterile, make it safe. Cleanliness is next to godliness, my mother used to say. I scrub the walls, scrub them until the paint begins to come off down the hallway. They're into the kitchen, scrub the counter, scrub the sink, scrub the cabinet, scrub the stove, scrub the refrigerator, scrub the microwave. Oh God, what if he got into my drawers and cabinets, my dishes, my utensils, my unclean germs? No, he wouldn't have had enough time to do it anyway. Okay, I'll do it anyway. Cleanliness is next to godliness, mother said. Gotta be safe, gotta be clean, gotta be pure, gotta be safe. Okay. Clean the contents of my drawers and cabinets one by one. Forks and spoons and knives and bowls and plates and vegetables peelers, potato masher, whisk, spatula, ladle, skillets, pots, and pans all must be clean and sterile. It's dark outside now. What time is it? Who cares? There's no time to look at my watch. I must clean everything. Clean inside the cabinets and the drawers next. Kill the germs, kill the diseases, make everything right, make it all good, make it... It hits me right then, what I've almost overlooked. The most crucial thing. Knowledge slamming down on me like a boulder as I spin, hard races in the direction of the refrigerator. My food! Oh, dear sweet Mary, Mother of God, he could have opened the refrigerator and contaminated my food with his filth! Food crawling with germs, swarming with bacteria and viruses beyond number, a legion of pestilence. It has to be thrown away. All of it! All of it! All of it! Distracted for a second, I absently placed my fingertip into my mouth and then realized with the most profound and soul-shattering sense of horror what I had just done. I screamed shrilly. Stupid, stupid, stupid! You've infected yourself! Now you're gonna get sick, and now you're gonna die! You filthy girl, go get me the bleach! I must cleanse that nasty thing where you were touching. I must make it pure. I can feel them inside of me, already rapidly multiplying and coursing down my throat, spreading to the rest of my body, invading, infecting. No! Germs, 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 germs! Cleanliness is next to godliness. I know what has to be done now. I must destroy the germs, must stop the infection from spreading, must cleanse myself. I open the kitchen closet and get the large bottle of bleach from the second shelf down, frantically twisting the child-proof cap off. I don't hesitate. I do what needs to be done. I raise the open bottle above my mouth, tilt my head back, and pour its contents down my throat. Burning agony rushes down my esophagus, and I can no longer breathe, let alone scream. I keep pouring, swallowing until the bleach bottle is empty. It's empty. I drop the bottle and instantly begin to vomit, and there is so much blood and chunks of pinkish white, pulpy stuff off the floor. Another mess I have to clean up. My whole body is racked with pain beyond anything I've ever experienced before in my life. Although the closest thing to it was probably that day when I was 9 and I was a nasty, dirty girl and Mother had to cleanse me, and I'm growing faint. My head spinning, my vision dimming, the world fading away around me. But in spite of all this, I'm smiling. Satisfied and relieved. And just before the blackness overtakes me, I think one last word. Pure.